All right, so we're going to look at the domain and range now. So number 14, we're going to state the domain and range. Now, before we talk about this stuff, or before we look into number 14, I want to go ahead and remind you what domain and range are. So domain is the set of all x values. The range is the set of y values, of all y values. And then a function is where you have x values that do not repeat. Okay, so looking at number 14, we're going to go ahead and find the domain for this function here. And when we look at the domain, we always read from left to right. Okay, so it goes from -3 and then it ends at 1. And these are my x values here. But if we look very, very closely, this is an open dot and this is a closed dot. So those are important to know as we write our domain. So we're reading from left to right. We start at -3 and we end at 1. And what I'm going to put right here is an x because we're dealing with x values, right? It's the set of all x values. So at -3, we have an open circle. So that means we're going to put a less than sign here, not a less than or equal to sign. But for this closed circle, we are going to put a less than or equal than sign between the x and the 1. So our domain is -3 is less than x, which is less than or equal to 1. Or we can write this as open parentheses, or regular parentheses, -3, comma, 1 with a square bracket right next to it. Okay, so those are two ways to write your answer for the domain of number 14. Okay, all right. The range. The range we're going to read from bottom to top. So we start off with -4 and it goes all the way up to 0. So I'm going to write -4 and 0. Okay. So here we have a closed circle, but if we go all the way up to this 0 here, y'all, we don't even need to worry about this when we're reading from bottom to top. We're looking at the 0, and that 0 is part of the function. It's part of this solid line, right? So in fact, this needs to be closed. Okay, so we have -4 and 0, and we're dealing with y values. So we're going to put y for our variable. And what we need to put between the -4 and the y is that less than or equal to sign. And then same thing for y and the 0 here. Because this is included, that means we need to understand that that is a closed dot. So we need to put a less than or equal to sign between the y and the 0. And you can represent this as square bracket -4, comma, 0 with a square bracket right next to it. So that is how you deal with the domain and range for number 14. For number 15, we have a set of points. We have 2, 3, -3, -2, 4, 5, -5, -4, and 6, 7. So what we're going to do is we're going to determine which ones are x's and which ones are our y values. So all of these things here are the x values, and all the things here are our y's. So then what we're going to do is we are going to put our x values in this thing here and our y values in this thing here. And we don't need to repeat our x values and our y values, okay? So let's go ahead and write our x's. So what I like to do is, why not? We're going to go ahead and have it from least to greatest, if that makes sense. So -5 is going to be our first x value. Our next one is going to be -3. Our next thing here is going to be 2, then 4, then 6. Okay, so I have all my x values from least to greatest. We're going to do the same thing for our y values. So -4, -2, +3, +5, and +7. Okay? So we have -5, and it gets mapped with the -4, right? That's going to be our 1 point. That's -5, comma, -4. Is -5 part of anything else? No. -3, comma, -2. Let's see. Okay, so -3 is mapped with -2. So these two numbers create that point, x comma y. 2 comma 3 is 2 with anything else. So 2 is only with 3 is 2 with anything else. There's no 2, there's no 2, there's no 2, there's no 2. Okay, so 2 is mapped with 3. 4, is it with 5? Just 5. Let's see, 4 comma 5, yes. Is 4 with anything else? There's no 4, there's no 4, there's no 4, there's no 4. So it's going to be mapped with 5. 6 is with 7, but is 6 with anything else? There's no x value of 6 here, 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 there. Doesn't matter. So it looks like this is indeed a function. Is this mapping a function? Yes. Why? X values don't repeat. But, y'all, if we said that, if we included that -5 is with -2, right? If this was part of our question here, then it would, this -5 would be mapped with this -2, as well it being mapped with -4 here. So that means that -5 is with -4, -5 is with this -2. It will not be a function if that's the case. Okay, so just keep in mind if that occurs to you at all. All right, 16. Find the range for f of x is equal to -6x minus 9 when the domain is -3, -1, 1, and 2. So all of these things here are the x values. Our goal here is determine the range. Okay, so the range for f of x is equal to -6x minus 9. Now recall from Algebra 1 that f of x is the same thing as y, right? So y is equal to -6x minus 9. All I need to do is replace x with each of these numbers in our domain, right? Once I input the x values, it's going to spit out the y values, which will be part of our range, okay? So let's go ahead and start plugging things in. So if I'm using this, I'm going to use f of x instead of y, but you need to know that f of x is the same thing as y. So if I plug in -3, and it looks like this, right? Then what I'm going to get is -6 times -3, which is +18, minus 9. So then 18 minus 9, that's 9. This is our y value, right? That's going to be our first y. So we're going to go ahead and put range, and then we're going to put these brackets here. our first one is going to be 9. And then if we take this and plug it into this function, just the same process as the other one. So f of -1 is equal to -6 times -1 minus 9. So -6 times -1, that's +6 minus 9. So 6 minus 9, that's -3. Okay, so -3 is going to be part of our range. And then lastly, second to lastly, we have the x value of 1. So f of 1 is equal to -6 times 1 minus 9. So -6 times 1 is -6 minus 9. Okay, so -6 minus 9, that's going to be -15. And then there you go. Our last one, f of 2 is equal to -6 times 2 minus 9. Right, so -6 times 2, that's -12 minus 9. That is -21. Okay. So let me go ahead and put some room here for -21. And there you go. That is our range.